Welcome into this week's edition of the X106 podcast. I'm Sean Nino, joined once again this week by Jacob Blair and Trevor Mader. This week we're going to start off talking about college football. The playoffs are only a few weeks away, and we're going to talk about kind of the coaching carousel that's been about, kind of what's going on at Tennessee, and some of the matchups this weekend for the what's the word I'm looking for?
Conference championship week.
Yeah, I was trying to find a different word, and that word didn't even come into my head. Okay, so let's start off with the conference championships first. This week, there's a few of them going on. We're going to start with the first one on Friday, Stanford USC. How do you guys think this game's going to go down?
We saw this game earlier this year. USC was victorious 42-24. Stanford's a team that I think they're playing better now than they did at the beginning of the season. Bryce Love's been playing well. I think they got him back healthy. They looked really good against Notre Dame. I think this is a better Stanford team than they were the last time I played. And USC, in the same note, this is a better USC team we saw in the middle of the season, too. They had a lot of injuries on that front line that they've kind of got fixed. So this could be a really intriguing matchup.
Yeah, it is intriguing. Unfortunately, this game's really not going to have anything to do with the college football playoff, but it's still going to be a good game to watch, especially that it's on Friday where really none of the other big conference championship games are. Like Trevor said, both Stanford and USC are playing better than where they were at the beginning of the season. I think it'll be a close and a good game from these two teams.
And this isn't quite the normal Pac-12 after dark. I mean, it gets dark around here around 5 o'clock, and this game starts at 7, so it's going to be dark here, but out there they'll have a bit of
it's in San Francisco, or Santa Clara, I guess it won't be technical, but San Francisco, so it'll be like a 5 p.m. kickoff.
Yeah, which means, there probably won't be fans there for a bit, and they'll just kind of funnel in, because they're still getting off work on a Friday.
Yeah, well, and the thing with Stanford, too, is, if you're a Stanford fan or alum, you're only 45 minutes from Palo Alto to Santa Clara. I don't even know if it's that. I haven't been out there in forever. That's not that far of a commute. There might be a lot of Stanford fans there. That's
true. I expect both teams to come out of there. But as you said, I think both teams are playing better, but I think USC is going to play a little bit better. They don't really have anything to play for other than and they're not even playing to get in the Rose Bowl either, because that's part of the playoffs. So, I'm just kind of try to finish out the year strong. But other than that, you don't really have much to play for.
No, actually it's not even the Rose Bowl, because the Rose Bowl is the semifinal. I believe it's at the Orange Bowl. I believe is the Big Ten Pac-12 champions will get a chance to play in the Orange Bowl, assuming they're not. So we could see an Ohio State USC Orange Bowl. That might be
it'll be exciting.
I'm all for bowl games if they're good teams. Like I'll watch I'll watch Ohio State USC. Like I definitely will do that. So. Got that going for you, I guess, if you're Stanford or USC.
Mm-hmm. The next game up is Saturday. It's Memphis versus UCF, and one of the hot coaching commodities, Scott Frost. Will this be his second to last game, or could it be his last game and he just missed the bowl game?
Yeah, and we can dive into this a little bit later on. Scott Frost, like I said, a hot coaching commodity. Central Florida, they're a fun team to watch, as is Memphis. I watched Memphis play UCLA earlier this year, and that was a really fun game. This game will probably have a lot of points and probably not much defense. Am I wrong?
I think they play defense. I just think that the offense just overpowers it. Like, it's not quite that Big 12 style where it's like, oh, they're like actually not playing defense. It's like, okay, they're trying to play defense. They're just making better offensive plays.
Yeah, this will be an interesting matchup.
And this is a matchup of two teams I really haven't seen a whole lot of this year. I know both are pretty good. UCF obviously still undefeated. Being it's the American Conference, it's kind of that sixth conference there. It's not necessarily a mid-major conference, but it's not necessarily one of the Power 5 conferences. So, but this game's still going to be fun to watch. I probably will be able to tune into it and catch some American conference football.
And this game will determine who will get into the New Year's Six bowl game. Because, they have that stipulation where you have to have a group of 5, as they call them, champion in there. Well, who else is it going to be? Because the only group of 5 teams that are ranked are Central Florida, Memphis,
Boise State.
Boise State got beat this week. They're not even ranked in the AP. Boise State, Fresno State, and South Florida, the ones that have a legitimate shot. Well, Fresno State plays
Boise State.
Boise State, that's right. Yeah, so they're not going to leapfrog, and whoever wins this game is probably going to get a chance to play in a New Year's Six bowl game against who knows who.
It's true. It'll be interesting to see. Now let's go on to the Big 12, newly crowned Big 12 title game that's meant to fix what's wrong with the Big 12.
Although I know it's meant to fix it, but there's a very good chance that it could hurt it.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I don't think TCU is going to come in and beat Oklahoma just because of the way the first game went. But if it does happen, then the Big 12 kind of screws itself out of getting a team into the playoff.
Well, and the problem is so if you're the Big 12 with this whole round-robin thing, and I don't have a problem with a round-robin schedule because if you have the chance to, I think you should play every team in your conference. But then the problem with the conference championship game with that is then one team in that conference championship game is guaranteed to come in with a loss because there's no ties in college football.
Correct.
So they're not going to come in 11-0-1. No, they're going to come in 11-1. Which, depending on a year like this year, that might not be bad. Had TCU beat Iowa State and gone in 11-1 and their one loss beat Oklahoma, you can make the argument the winner of that game would still get in the playoff. But now where TCU's 10-2, they don't have a chance to get in. A lot of really crazy stuff would have to happen. They'd probably have to win by at least 5 touchdowns, and I don't think that's going to happen. The Big 12 shot themselves in the foot with this, I think, at least for this year. Because you go back to, was it the first year where TCU and Baylor both had one loss? And Ohio State leapfrogged them. Mm-hmm. The conference championship game was not why they didn't get teaming. Granted, it might not have helped. Baylor's non-con schedule was awful. TCU's non-con schedule was awful. And I think Ohio State was a better team that year. So, I don't know. I wasn't on board the Big 12 championship game they added. I get why they did, but I don't know. I feel like they could have done something better.
Yeah, the Big 12 championship game, them adding this game, will not be a problem if Oklahoma wins.
No, yeah, I totally agree.
You guys have already said, if Oklahoma loses this game, it's going to take Oklahoma out of the college football playoff. Right now, if everything ended right now, I'd have Oklahoma in the top 4. If they lose this game, they're out. And if they lose, then it opens up the door for a whole bunch of other stuff to happen if other stuff on the other conference championship games happen. But, as we've seen in the past where the two teams come in and then they have to all play each other, and the Big 12 ends up getting left out because each team beats each team, and somehow everyone ends up with 2 losses. This year, you finally got Oklahoma that ended the season with 1 loss, and now they have an opportunity to go in and lose another football game.
Yeah, and it could also kind of shake up the way if say TCU wins. That could really shake up the way the New Year's Six bowl game, the Cotton Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and the Peach Bowl, the way those things work out, because Oklahoma's probably going to be in a New Year's Six bowl game. TCU will be guaranteed a spot in a New Year's Six bowl game. So you might get a team like if, say, Auburn loses this week to Georgia, you got 3 losses. All of a sudden, Auburn goes from having a shot of playing in the playoffs to playing in the Outback Bowl against Michigan or something like that. So I know how Sean feels about bowl games, so I know it might not mean a ton, but I like good bowl games. So I
like good bowl games too, but I don't enjoy when 2 5-7 teams are going against each other.
I don't want to see
you're going to lose by 4.
I don't want to see 6-6 North Texas play 7-5 Army. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. 8-4 Michigan, 9-3 LSU.
Okay, I'll watch that.
I'll tune in at least. I would tune in for Auburn, Michigan. Which, speaking of that, guys, real quick, I know we got to move on to the more conference talk, but I just kind of looked at Sports Illustrated's bowl projections for the New Year's Six. Penn State, TCU in the Cotton Bowl.
Okay,
be a fun matchup. USC, Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl.
Ooh,
this one would be Miami, Alabama in the Orange Bowl.
Okay.
And then Central Florida, Ohio State in the Peach Bowl.
Yeah.
So I would tune into those.
I mean, yeah, I'd tune into all of those ones because they're good teams.
Also, they project Missouri in the Liberty Bowl against West Virginia, and I've been calling this one for a long time. Iowa against Texas A&M in the Franklin American Mortgage Music City. We just fired our coach bowl.
Yeah.
That's not the full name.
Oh, well, I mean,
it's just the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl.
True. Next, we're going to actually go to the SEC. We have Georgia versus Auburn in a matchup where Auburn, a few weeks back, absolutely smashed Georgia. It's not entirely the word I was going to use, but we're going to keep it PG.
Were you going to say raffle stomped?
No, I was going to put a part of a person, and that's what got smashed, because that was not a pretty game. Right now, Auburn is
Fingers
a 2.5
smashed?
point. No, Auburn's a 2.5 point favorite, which is okay, but I mean they made Georgia look like a bitch. That's like. There's no other way around it. And
Can we say that?
It's not going on radio. It's going on YouTube. Come on, Trevor. It's fine. But Auburn's coming off of a game where they pretty much manhandled Alabama. Alabama didn't look like a team that could be in the playoff. They still might be in the playoff depending on how things come out. But, I mean, they haven't beaten pretty much a good team this year. So at this point, these are the two teams we get for the SEC championship, and it could come down to neither of these teams are going to be in the playoff.
No, the winner of this game is in. I think I say that now. We'll see what it looks like tonight when the rankings come out. And my goal is to have this uploaded by the time the rankings come out. I say that every week, but
it's
that is my goal.
6 o'clock, so
7, I thought, isn't it? The rankings?
That was 6. Whatever.
Okay. Well, whatever. My goal is to hopefully I might even have it done by the time I leave campus here today. I think personally, not knowing anything before the rankings came out, I think the winner of this game is in. And definitely, I think if Georgia wins, I think they're in. Because if you're Georgia, your one loss is to Auburn. Granted, you got smoked, but you made up for it and you beat them. You also have a win on the road against Notre Dame. So you're in your 12-1 in the SEC, which is down this year, but people give that a lot of credit. And the flip side, if you're Auburn, your argument is, hey, man, we're 11-2. We beat Georgia twice. Mm-hmm. The first time we smoked them. The second time, who knows how it'll play out. We beat Alabama. Granted, it was on the road, or it was at home. Our 2 losses are
to Clemson
at Clemson, and 2 LSU at LSU. Auburn's won, I think I read like 12 in a row at home or something, which is part of why I picked them last week, and I think I was the only one that picked them. But if you're Auburn, you have a very strong case that you've shown on the field that you're better than Alabama, at least in that one game. So, well, I mean, what would be the argument the committee have? Would it come down to 1 loss versus 2 loss? I mean, that would be the only argument you could make if you're. Or for an Auburn over Alabama would be, well, Auburn's got 2 losses and Bama's got 1. Okay, well, Auburn played Clemson and non-con, and you played Mercer.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think Alabama can still get in.
Oh, I think
it's going to be as a second SEC team. I have this game being an absolute play-in game. The winner of this game goes, and I agree with basically everything Trevor said about both teams. Both teams put together schedules, and I know Auburn's got the 2 losses, but they put together their non-conference schedules, and then the way conference worked out, Auburn had a much tougher schedule than Alabama.
And to be fair to Alabama, I know they scheduled Florida State, and Florida State, obviously, like, no one expected Florida State to go 5. They're 5-6 right now. No one expected Florida State to fight to make a bowl game. I think when we did our preseason college football playoff predictions, I don't remember if I had Florida State, but I know a couple of you guys did. I know on Weekend Sports Card. I know I had Alabama, Oklahoma State, and then I don't remember from there.
I don't even remember what I had.
Yeah, that's all I remember. I think I had USC too, so I wasn't perfect here. Don't get me wrong. But to be fair, they did play Florida State. But their schedule hasn't been as tough this year as an Auburn or a Georgia. And you didn't win. Not only will you have not won the conference, you will have not won your division. Mm-hmm. And I have a hard time with that.
Yeah. But they're also Alabama, so they may get the benefit of the doubt.
And that might be what. And do I think Alabama's probably one of the 4 best teams in college football?
Maybe.
Yes.
I see. That's where
maybe
I don't think Alabama's looked very. They've looked like a top 10 team all year. I don't think they've looked real impressive.
And I would argue that
they really didn't do much against Auburn. They really struggled with Mississippi State.
And I would argue up until the Mississippi State game, Alabama looked like the best team in the nation, but they hadn't played anybody. And, I mean, they played LSU at home, and we've seen how they've just kind of got LSU's number in the past 5 or 6 years. So I just going into that Mississippi State game, when they struggled Mississippi State, who's a decent team, they're now a coachless team, but they're a decent team. That kind of sent some red flags to me of, okay, this team is beatable. Like, this is a good Alabama team, don't get me wrong, but this is not like the Alabama team last year that many people thought were unbeatable. This is not the Alabama team that had Mark Ingram that just dominated teams and dominated Tim Tebow. This is a good but not great Alabama team. I think if Alabama gets into the playoff, I think they could win it all. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't think they do, but I think they could.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to go to the ACC. Miami recently lost versus Clemson. Now this this has kind of lost its shine since last week because if the Hurricanes don't lose that game, then this is a very good matchup because then both of these teams. Well, okay, but I mean like not as big because now I don't think that the Hurricanes really have a chance to get in the playoff.
I think they do.
I do too.
Because you look at they're sitting idle, and we might be wrong because we'll see how the rankings come out tonight. But I'm going to guess they're going to drop 6 or 7. I'm going to say. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and run through it quick. You guys, what would be your CFP rankings right now? If you had to rank them, how would you rank them?
Probably Clemson number 1, Oklahoma 2, Wisconsin 3. And then Auburn 4, and then Alabama probably 5.
So who would you put 6? Would you put Georgia or Miami?
I'd put Georgia.
Okay, so you got Miami 7. That's about what I have. I would want to switch Auburn and Wisconsin personally because I think Auburn's a better team, but Wisconsin will get the benefit of the doubt for being undefeated in the Big Ten. So I'd go the same way. I don't know about Jacob. How would it be about the same? Would you anything you'd flip and flop?
I think the 4 teams I have enter the same, but I'd actually have Oklahoma at 1, Clemson at 2, Auburn
and I'm
at
kind
3,
of on the
Wisconsin at 4, and then Alabama at 5, Georgia at 6, Miami at 7, and then Ohio State at 8.
And I'd probably put USC 9.
Ohio State, I think we still have that game to get to, but I still think they have it's a very slim shot, but they still have a shot if a lot of stuff happens to get to the playoff.
But to me, okay, so we all got Miami as, say, 7 coming in tonight, and that could happen. They could drop down to 8 or 9. It's tough to say how they grade that loss against Pitt. But they beat Clemson, who we all have ranked as number 1. You just beat the number 1 team in the nation.
But then that kind of determines, like, how far is Clemson going to drop? Because
Clemson's going to drop. What's probably Alabama is still, they're not in a good spot there. Because to me, the winner of the ACC is in. Because Clemson, because Miami will have had, granted they lost to Pitt. I get that. But you look at the teams that have made the playoffs the last couple of years, they've had some bad losses. Clemson last year lost to Pitt, who wasn't much better than they were this year. Michigan State lost to Nebraska the year they made it. I know Michigan State got thumped. But there's been some teams that have had some bad losses and made the playoff. Ohio State the year they won got blown out by Virginia Tech on the road. So they might overlook that and go, okay, well, they beat Clemson in the ACC title game. They thumped Notre Dame. And they did what they had to do. They're 12-1. They were 7th. They beat the number 1 team in the nation on a neutral site. They didn't do it at home. They did it on a neutral site. And I think that could cause them to leapfrog into the top 4 and create a situation where Alabama still might get left out.
Yeah, and it just depends on kind of how it comes out tonight. Cause
yeah, who knows? If they drop Miami down to like 9 or 10, which I don't think will happen, then it's like, oh, you got some work to do. But then they might just drop them down to 5 because they have them at 2.
Right now it's at 2, but that's without.
Yeah, so they could drop them down to 5 or 6. There could be a chance they're still ahead of Georgia. I don't think so.
There's a chance,
but I think there's a legitimate chance.
Who do you think wins this game right now? Clemson's the 9.5 point favorite.
I want to say Clemson just because that defense, the way it's playing. But at the same time, it makes them argue Miami up until last week. I don't know. I guess I'll have more of an idea hopefully by Friday for the weekend sports kickoff.
True.
I have Clemson winning this game. I think all the stuff we've just talked about with Miami is not going to matter because Clemson's going to take care of business. And
okay, understandable.
But the part of like the college football fan in me hopes that Miami beats Clemson because I want to see what happens. Like, I want chalk because then it means Alabama won't get in, and that's great. But at the same time, like, I love the mayhem of who's going to get in. Will this team leapfrog this team? Which I guess kind of leads perfectly into the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, Sean.
That's true. With that game, it is it's going on at the same time as the Miami-Clemson game. So both of these games will be the nightcap. And right now, Ohio State is a 6-point favorite going up against undefeated Wisconsin, who, in their own right, very good team, but have not really played anybody, which isn't entirely their fault, but it's also, kind of the way that the Big Ten schedule kind of played out this year. This is going to be, I think, a really close matchup. I think it depends if JT Barrett plays. That right now has a big impact on me, even though I can't remember the Ohio State backup's name, but he came in last week and didn't look
It's
terrible.
Not Bowserman, is it?
No, I think it was Jones, Jones something.
Not Cardale Jones.
No, but it was like something Jones the third.
Let me do some Googling. Is it Haskins?
I don't know. I wasn't paying enough attention to be able to.
I was calling the Bearcat men's game for X106, so I could not find it. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he plays this week. I think the competitor in JT Barrett is.
Maybe it was Dwayne Haskins. I don't know. I think it was number 7.
That's.
But I thought I saw something else. But that's fine. But he came in and he didn't look bad. So
we remember what happened the last time that an Ohio State quarterback got hurt in the Michigan game. And they played Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game.
Didn't they come in and they roll over them?
Cardale Jones had like the greatest 3 games. He had such a good 3-game stretch that he was considering going pro after those 3 games. And they beat Wisconsin 59-0 in the Big Ten championship game. Don't think that'll happen because this is a better Wisconsin team than the one in 14. But this is an interesting matchup to me. The key for me, guys, is when you look at Ohio State, Wisconsin runs the ball really, really well because, well, they're Wisconsin. Ohio State doesn't stop the run really, really well because, I don't know, they just haven't tried to this year. I mean, they gave up, I believe, 250, just under 250 yards to Iowa earlier this year, who's probably the second or third best running team in the Big Ten behind Wisconsin. So they're going to have to stop the run if they want to get this done.
Yeah.
For me, I think Wisconsin is a better team than a lot of people are giving them credit for. And you're in the Big Ten, and I know the Big Ten isn't great, but it's still a Power 5 conference, and you've gone undefeated. You have to be good to do that. So for me, I think Wisconsin is going to win this game. It's going to be an extremely close game, but I think Wisconsin will win the game. And one thing I do want to at least say for myself is the SEC championship game. For me, that's a play-in game. The ACC championship is a play-in game. If Oklahoma and Wisconsin take care of business, they're in.
And it's chalk, basically.
And if one loses, I think Alabama's in. If both lose and Ohio State beats Wisconsin, then Ohio State is in. But one or the other has to happen for Alabama to get in, or both have to.
And I think there's still maybe a possibility. I wouldn't do it, but I think there's a possibility that Ohio State could get in over Alabama. If Ohio State goes out and beats Wisconsin like they did in 14, not even maybe 59, but 38-3, and you're Ohio State and you're going, okay, we beat Penn State, we beat Wisconsin, we have better wins than we win Alabama. Because when you look at it, you'll look at the losses, and that's where it'll hurt Ohio State's. Okay, you lost Oklahoma at home, you got spanked by Iowa. I mean, you got spanked. I'm going to steal Sean's line. Iowa made Ohio State their bitch. And that the committee's
that's
gonna,
a fact. It's not even
the committee's just like they did in Nebraska this week. The committee's gonna look at that and go, okay, well, you don't lose to Iowa. So
it's kind of like it was last year when a team of Mays happened to lose to an Iowa team.
They had 2 losses. Ohio State had 1 loss.
Well, but I'm just saying, how certain fans,
well, we should have been in the playoff. Don't lose to Iowa, and you'll make the playoff.
It's a very common statement.
Going back to what you said earlier about Wisconsin and thinking this team is good, now the chance to show it. This Wisconsin team, I think it's better than, but in a lot of ways, it reminds me of that Iowa team from 2 years ago, where they hadn't played anybody, and people people forget about that Iowa team. The only thing people remember about that Iowa team is that they got smoked.
The Rose Bowl.
They got smoked.
They remember the Rose Bowl.
That's really about all that most people saw of Iowa was the Rose Bowl. You look at a lot of ways Wisconsin's played games. They've won some games in really ugly fashion this year. And they run the ball really well. They make plays and create turnovers on the defensive side.
Their style of play will lend to some ugly wins.
And that's the same way it was with Iowa in 15. I remember watching the game where they beat Wisconsin 10-6. And then the next, 2 weeks later, they played Minnesota, who was an uglier team than Wisconsin, and they win 42-35. So I think this team is very similar in a lot of ways to that. And that's what scares me about saying that I think this team is really good. Because I think this team is good. I like the way they play ball. But I said the same thing in 15 with Iowa, and the Michigan State came to town, and they took Michigan State punch for punch. Didn't quite get done. Then they get to the Rose Bowl, and they got exposed. And that's what scares me with Wisconsin.
And saying Wisconsin's good doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win, because Ohio State's good too.
Yeah.
It's just I'm just giving them a little bit more credit than what maybe some of the more national media attention is.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence of how I'll pick this game. I think it'll be close no matter how it goes. And I'm rooting for Wisconsin just because I like Wisconsin more than I do Ohio State. But I don't know. That's an interesting one. And I want to see Wisconsin in the college football playoff. I think it's better for college football when you have programs that aren't historically dominant, like a Wisconsin or a Michigan State, or if Kansas State ever finds their way in, or an Iowa, or programs like that, the blue chip schools of Virginia Tech, something like that, to get in the playoff instead of your typical Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, USC. It was good last year. Washington got. Granted, they played a cupcake schedule, but it's good when you get parity in the playoffs and you get that, and then you get the Midwest representation as well. If you get Wisconsin in the playoff, and I think they want a Big Ten team in. So like all this talk of, well, if Wisconsin wins and goes undefeated, I don't think they'll get in the playoff. I could be wrong because who knows how the rankings come out. There's a chance when the rankings come out tonight that the committee still craps on Wisconsin and has them 5th and Alabama 4th. I think there's a chance. Me personally, you're undefeated. You're in the Big Ten. You've played well this year, even though it hasn't been pretty. I think if they went out, they're in.
See, and with that, they could end up putting Alabama at 4 and Wisconsin at 5. The thing is, Alabama's not playing. Wisconsin is.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to get to as well. Is then Wisconsin. If you're Wisconsin, you look at it as, okay, well, we still got a game to prove ourselves. If we go out and beat Ohio State by 20, then we have that quality win. If we beat, look, you said we hadn't played anybody. You apparently thought enough of Ohio State to have them ranked 8th or wherever they're ranked. And we went out and we spanked them. What's Alabama done? And
they
we have no losses. So it'll be interesting. I'm rooting for the Badgers. And I think Wisconsin's a team that, like Sean and I were talking about, I think their playing style can give teams fits come playoff time. So that's a team I really want to see make the playoff. I may or may not pick the Badgers this week.
So one thing to think about before we go to the coaching carousel, I think the one thing that the college playoff they don't want would be Clemson, Miami, Georgia, Alabama, or insert Auburn there, because then you only have the southeast corner of
And I think that's
America.
where maybe they're happy that Bama lost and Miami lost this week, because let's be real, there was a legit chance that if Bama beat Auburn this week and Miami beat Pitt and then Clemson beat Miami and Georgia beat Bama in the SEC title game, there was a legitimate shot that you could get 2 ACC schools and 2 SEC schools.
That is not what people want.
And now the only way that you get 2 teams from the same conference in is if some other teams mess up and Bama sneaks its way in. That to me that's probably better for the overall health of college football at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, Trevor, we're going to go to the topic that you specifically wanted us to cover, which is the coaching carousel.
I love this kind of
stuff. We
stuff.
will save the big story for the
which
last,
one is it? Is it
okay. It's that one.
Okay.
Rocky Top.
Okay.
That one. So we'll just kind of go over which coaches have been signed. Do you think they're going to the right places? That type of stuff.
Should we go over which coach has been fired first, maybe?
We'll kind of go over what's been hired, what's still left out there. Because, some big ones. You have Chip Kelly going to UCLA. I think it's a decent fit.
I love that fit. I don't
know if I love it quite yet, just because I think it's going to take time to build it up. They're not in a bad place, but I don't think they're going to go out and.
Can I make a hot take here?
You can do it whatever you want.
If Chip Kelly's at UCLA for, let's say, the next 5 years, sometime in the next 5 years they'll make the playoff.
Okay, I thought you were going to say win a title.
My God. Maybe. How hard is it to get from making the playoff to win a title? It's hard, but it's not that hard.
True.
But I think they could. I think they can find themselves a championship contender with that, because the thing with Chip Kelly is, and I thought this when it came down to him and between UCLA and Florida, is Chip Kelly, when he was at Oregon, got a lot of guys from the Southern California region. And sometimes they weren't necessarily the 5-star guys, because you couldn't get those guys to Oregon at the time. They were 3-star guys. They were 4-star guys. Now he's in UCLA. He's got all the resources. He can recruit kids on a bicycle and find 5-star running backs and 5-star tight ends and 5-star quarterbacks. And the thing is, too, is a lot of these kids now that are going to be recruited by Chip Kelly, when they were watching him coach at Oregon, were 13, 14, 15 years old. They're at that age where they were very impressionable. And every 13, 14, 15-year-old kid loved, at least when I was that age, loved watching Oregon. They had cool uniforms, and they ran this really cool offense, and it was so up-tempo, and they scored a lot of points. When Chip Kelly comes to a recruit's door in southern Los Angeles, they're going to go, holy cow, that's Chip Kelly. I remember watching him coach at Oregon when I was a kid, and they scored lots of points, and they did this. And if I come to UCLA, I can score lots of points, and I can have lots of fun. I run this really fun, up-tempo offense. And he's in the Pac-12, which I think is more probably one of the biggest parity conferences in college football.
I have a weird question that I literally just thought of. UCLA is an Adidas school.
I was wondering that.
I was like, well, okay, I don't think they're going to change to Nike just because of Chip Kelly. I think that had more to do with them literally being in Nike Town, basically. But, just kind of see if they'll kind of
get some cool uniforms.
Yeah, just get some new cool uniforms. You can do some interesting stuff with those colors. I think you could do more with Oregon's colors, but, whatever.
I just like the schools that on the uniform deal that wear a different uniform every single game. They never wear the same uniform look twice.
Oregon, Oklahoma State. Yeah, I don't like it. But I think this is a really good hire for you. So I think it's a really good fit. It'll be interesting to see as it goes along what it's like. UCLA's always kind of been the little brother to USC, or at least in our lifetime. And if nothing else, this will make UCLA a fun team to watch because it's kind of like Oklahoma State. Like Oklahoma State's always been the little brother to Oklahoma, and they knew that, so they had to make it fun, and that's why they have 47 different uniforms. It feels like, and they run an up-tempo offense, and their coach has an awesome mullet, even though I could never pull it off. Like you got to at least sell a brand of football that is fun to watch and entertaining and cool, and I think they can do that. UCLA with Chip Kelly.
Yeah. Now we're going to go to the other coast. You have Dan Mullen going to Florida. He's been there before, so I don't think this is kind of out of the blue. I think it just makes sense.
I'm shocked it didn't happen one of the previous times that the Florida job was open. Like last time, it came down to him and Jim McElwain, and he basically said that might have been the year that Mississippi State was in contention for the college football playoff.
Kind of, they either were going to have one of the best classes that they've ever had, or they had already had it, so they were wanting to see what was going to happen. So
yeah, this would have been. It was the year that they were really good, and he decided to stick around. So I like this hire a lot as well because he understands he understands Gainesville, obviously, and he understands Florida. And I think this is a good get for Florida because the SEC East is not like the SEC West. It's pretty winnable.
There are 4 teams. LSU's in the
West.
So, yeah, there are 5 teams, maybe, like, that could legitimately have a shot. I mean, Alabama's generally favored.
In the last 10 years, the only 2 teams that have won the SEC East are Alabama and LSU. Oh, 3 teams. Alabama, LSU, Auburn. That's it. And Alabama's won like 6 of them. In the last 10 years of the SEC, you've had Florida win it. You've had South Carolina win I'm talking the West. You've had Georgia. You've had Missouri. It's not that far-fetched to think that Florida can get around and win the SEC. SEC West, that is. East, that is. Excuse me. Man, there's too much SEC. And the thing that I think really helps them, too, is what was Florida's biggest problem this year? Not just offense, but specifically
they didn't have a quarterback.
And Dan Mullen is great when it comes to quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, there's a stat I saw that's like, while he was at Florida as the offensive coordinator, they had like the 6th best offense in the nation. Now they're like 83rd.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Well, you look, he was Alex Smith's quarterback coach at Utah, and then he was with Tim Tebow at Florida. He goes to Mississippi State and had success with Dak Prescott. Nick Fitzgerald had a couple really good years.
Yeah, and
then his ankle took a 180-degree turn, and that was. Did you see that injury? That was
I
awful.
did. I
felt so bad for that kid. But
I only watched it once, I will tell you that.
I saw it once. That's all I needed to see. But I think this is a good hire for Florida. Why not?
I mean, you really can't go anywhere else. What, they're 4-7?
Were they 4-7, or did they only play 11 games this year? Because I'm
pretty sure them and Florida State playing last week. I was watching, and they were both 4-6. So I think.
Yeah, well, Florida State's playing this week because they want to get to a bowl game.
Good for them.
So, yeah, I thought it was a good hire.
Okay. Not a lot of big hire. Well, there's kind of one other big hire. But again, touching that just a little bit later. We have going to Trevor's land, Matt Campbell staying at Iowa State. Not that I didn't see it coming, but like I think it was yesterday they gave him the multi-year deal, which is good to see. It's good to see that he's staying there to kind of build up a program. I mean, he could still leave, but it's
to me, this is smoke and mirrors because, like, I think, like, obviously, like, everything I've seen and heard about Matt Campbell, like, he's not going to sign this extension and then tomorrow turn around and take the Tennessee job. And that's actually why why they offered him the extension was, okay, Tennessee's calling, Texas A&M's probably going to call, Mississippi State might call. Who knows what else opens up? Florida State could open up. I think, to me, though, Matt Campbell's going to be there for 2018. Okay, I am pretty sure of that. But if the Notre Dame or the Ohio State job ever opens up, here's a guy that's from Ohio. He's spoken before highly. He's never, like, totally gone out and said that, like, oh, Notre Dame's my dream job. But everything I've heard about him sounds like Notre Dame is his dream job. If one of those two jobs opens up in the next couple of years, I don't care if it's after next year, he is probably gone. Actually, let me rephrase that. If they offer him, he is gone.
And I think they'll be able to shove out the money to be able to do whatever clause they have, like, buyout clause, something like that.
I think his buyout's $9 million, which I get if you're a program like Mississippi State, might be a little hard. But what's $9 million to Notre Dame? You know, that's a couple kids' tuition. What's $9 million to Ohio State? I mean, it's really, it's not that much.
Booster kind of has to give a little bit more money.
I guess, quit buying so many trophies for tattoos, or I don't know. But like I think that's very possible that could happen in the next couple of years. Who knows what'll happen? I know you talked here, so you think Urban Meyer will coach forever?
No, I don't think forever, but like the way he put it was like he could be gone in 5 years. And I mean, 5 years is a long time, but right now, like for the time that he was at Florida, he at least like didn't just quit immediately. He still had a bit of time frame that he kind of left.
Well, he quit the first time and then was like, "Oh no, I can't quit," and came back. And the second time he was like, I think at the end of the regular season he was like, "I'm done." And that was a lot of health problems too. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly, it's tough to say because Notre Dame did not finish the season particularly well after the way they started. So he might start 2018 on the hot seat, and he could be out of a job in 2018. It's tough to say how it'll plan on Notre Dame goes in 2018. So Matt Campbell, Iowa State fans, he's there for now. Enjoy him while you have him because I would be willing to bet money that Matt Campbell does not see the end of that 6-year contract.
Trevor, now we go to the mountaintop. We go to the biggest story.
You're forgetting one.
Okay, well, Trevor, start with which one?
You know which one.
Texas A&M?
No, they had them too. Arkansas, they fired their coach as well. Yeah. Arizona State, they fired. Sean, you're forgetting one.
Just like way
we're in the Midwest. It's not done yet. They haven't hired a coach yet.
Trevor, I'm drawing multiple.
Jacob, you know where I'm going with this?
Nope.
Oh my goodness. Who just got spanked this week and then fired their coach the day after?
Big old red over there.
Nebraska.
Oh yeah, because I'm talking about Scott Frost. Yeah, he's probably there. He's probably there.
I think he is probably, but I am really interested to see the cynical anti-Nebraska fan in me. I want to see what happens if they don't get Scott Frost. What if Scott Frost says, "Nah, I'm staying at Central Florida." If that happens, and I don't think it will, but if that happens, if Husker fans thought they'd hit rock bottom already, oh buddy, you've now hit rock bottom when your coach says when the pride of Nebraska, a guy that's from Nebraska, played quarterback in Nebraska, won a national championship in Nebraska, and you knock on his door and he says, "Nah, I like where I'm at American Athletic Conference, Central Florida."
I mean, at least there you can go and win some titles.
You have a problem.
Some conference titles.
And I think what they're trying to do is wait until at least until after the conference title game, because it's very unprecedented for a coach to leave before a conference title game. Mm-hmm. But let's say hypothetically,
he still might not leave until after the bowl game.
And he might not
because Nebraska's not going to a bowl game.
Yeah, but at the same time, are they really going to wait that long to make it
public and that kind of stuff?
But at the same time, let's say Jimbo Fisher, who is rumored to take the A&M job, let's say he bolts and that Florida State job opens up. Which job's better, Florida State or Nebraska?
Right now, Florida State.
I would say, right now, definitely Florida State because you have a lot better recruiting pool there. You already know the Florida area.
Florida, yeah.
But, he might think differently being a Nebraska guy. I don't know, Jacob. You have anything? You feel like I look like you were going to jump on the mic. You have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I was, and then it left me. So.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah. So.
Well, you know what that means, Trevor. We get to go to Rocky Top. Good old fired John Curry. Greg Schiano's not there anymore. Oh, my goodness. This is great.
That whole thing is. That's a mess.
Yeah.
Have you been following it all, Jacob? You've been following the Tennessee situation, right?
See, I have, and so much stuff has gone on. I've been writing a lot of papers. We're getting up here towards the end of our semester. I know the feeling too.
So I've been and it's terrible with trying to get like all my projects and my papers done, and then I have this weird problem of I always end up either watching college football or college basketball or WWE videos, or I read stuff on Twitter, and it's terrible. But I'll kind of fill you in, and for all our listeners that don't know what's going on, Tennessee fired their head coach Butch Jones, who had vastly underachieved in his 5 years at Tennessee.
Yes.
And they were in search of a new coach. And Tennessee's a program that it's almost like the Nebraska of the South, I guess I should say.
Kind of, but I mean not as
they were
successful.
good in the 90s, and that's about it. And they'll remind you they were good in the 90s. But they haven't, really, what's Tennessee done the last 15 years? Nothing. I mean, they haven't done anything. So they fire their coach, and they're searching left and right, trying to figure out who they want. And
John Gruden.
There's some connection. John Gruden's wife went to Tennessee, or there's some
rumors, baby. They are out right now.
There's some sort of rumor. There's some sort of connection between John Gruden and Tennessee. I'm not sure what it is. But last time when the job was open, they offered him a boatload of money. It might have literally been a boatload of money. I don't know. And he didn't take it. He chose to stay at ESPN. He was a grad assistant at Tennessee. That's what it was. And then I think his wife was going to school at Tennessee. But anyways, so finally they come about and they decide they want to hire Greg Schiano, the former Rutgers head coach, who also coached in the NFL with the Bucs and is now the defense coordinator at Ohio State. Well, Tennessee fans were not very happy with that. They're using the reason of because there's some he was at Penn State. There's some allegations that he was kind of involved with the whole Jerry Sandusky child molestation case. There's never been anything proven. There's never been anything in the court of law that has confirmed nor denied that he has. He was never subpoenaed or anything. So it's really kind of a gray area. Well, Tennessee fans, one notably in particular that is also in the media industry, took to protest Tennessee hiring Greg Schiano, and they did a good job to the point where they backed out, and this whole thing is a mess.
Well, because now even they have to determine whether they have to pay Schiano anything, because there was I can't remember the exact wording, but there was
memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, and the chancellor didn't sign it, so it really wasn't official. So yeah, they have to figure out what they have to pay him first. Then they have to figure out who they're going to get. There's possible of Mike Gundy going there, and you've said that he was close to going before, and now would be a decent time because you're still under Oklahoma, and you could just kind of.
But at the same time, but if you go to Tennessee, you're playing Alabama once a year. And I think the way Georgia is, Kirby Smart's there to stay. And he's got them on the map. Florida, who knows what Dan Mullen will do. I believe highly in Dan Mullen. Mm-hmm. He did a lot with little at Mississippi State. So who knows
So now what can he do when he
has a lot? Yeah. That'll be interesting. I think Oklahoma State's a better job, but there's been a lot of reports of friction between Mike Gundy and the boosters that be at Oklahoma State. So, and he almost took the job in 2013 and backed out at the last minute. So he could go there. But this whole thing is just really weird, and it makes Tennessee look really, really bad. Not just the football team, but the athletic program, the fans. No one, unless they get John Gruden, which isn't going to happen. This is just a giant black eye on Tennessee.
That's true. And my favorite part was last night watching Monday Night Raw, and they are at Tennessee. Funny enough, coincidentally, and the crowd
starts
in Knoxville.
Chanting. They're at the stadium, the arena on campus,
and they just start chanting "Fire Curry." And I wasn't entirely sure what they were saying because it's wrestling. I was like, "Who's Curry?" I was like, "Oh no!" And so they're going to have to figure it out, and it's a giant mess.
It is. My thing with it is they really botched this whole thing because they came out and said, we vetted him, and we didn't see anything wrong, but he's not our guy. Okay, well, you still offered him the job. So it's just a mess. you basically you caved into your fan base, which then that's not a good position to put yourself in going forward, because now you've set the expectation that if they don't get Mike Gundy and they go and hire Dave Doran from North Carolina State, who's a good coach,
then are they going to be angry?
oh, they're going to be angry because you didn't get John Gruden, you didn't get Mike. If they get Mike Gundy, that's a cool hire because it's Mike Gundy. If they go and get, really that's probably the only one that would legit have a shot, because Urban Meyer's not going to leave Ohio State for Tennessee. No. Nick Saban's not going to leave Alabama for Tennessee. No. Outside of that, what do you got? Jimbo Fisher, maybe? Oh, the guy won a national championship.
They can go get Art Briles. I'm pretty sure he's free.
Yeah, but wouldn't that, after the whole thing with Schiano, wouldn't that be 10 times worse?
I don't know.
I think it would be. I don't think Schiano's a bad coach. I don't think he's a great coach, but I don't think he's a bad coach. Mm-hmm. And it kind of made him look really, really bad. Even though he might not have even done anything.
He might not, but the fan base was really upset, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna.
But at what point, to me, I don't know that I totally buy into their reasoning of it.
Neither do I.
Why not just say, hey, we don't like to hire? I don't know. That whole thing's a mess. I look forward to watching it unwind.
It's true.
It'll be interesting.
It's very good television to watch. Just see what kind of pops up. Well, now we're gonna kind of switch gears and go to college men's basketball. We have a new top 25.
Jacob's excited, I can tell.
Yeah, see, because Jacob's like, man, I watch this every night. It is my bread and butter. It's what he talks about. So we're just gonna go through the top 5. Well, the top 7's the same, but just the top 5 for the AP 25 and the coaches poll. You have Duke, Kansas, Michigan State, Villanova, and Notre Dame. There's a very important team missing from not only the top 5, not only the top 10, but the top 25. Last week, number 2 Arizona lost 3 games in a row. Trevor, I'm pretty sure you've said for the past few years that you have not believed the hype for Arizona. Well,
okay, the first couple years,
for the past few years,
the first 2 or 3, the Arizona hypes are going on since probably the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. The first 2 years, 3 years, I fell victim to it. One year, I think I even picked them to either win the national title game or make it, and that was the Aaron Gordon year. That was probably their best team, and they got beat by Wisconsin. The next year, I had them going Elite 8, whatever, losing Wisconsin. The last couple of years, I didn't fall victim to it, and I've been saying for the last 4 years, everyone said Arizona's going to be good this year. And how many Final Fours have they gotten to? None.
Yeah, it's not very good.
What were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you? Was that kind of where you're going?
No, it was just Arizona. They lost 3 games in a row after being the number 2 team in the country, and they've been this team we're going to be really great, but they just haven't lived up to that. I can understand not living up to expectations for years.
I remember someone on the Weekend Sports Kickoff when we did our national championship picks. Someone picked Arizona. I won't name him, but it was Devin Albertson.
I mean, it's it's hard to.
I get it's early.
Yeah, but it's also don't lose 3 games in a row.
You lost to North Carolina State, Purdue, and SMU. None of those losses are actually alone. None of those losses are bad, that bad of losses. North Carolina State might be the worst loss, but it's not a terrible loss. But when you couple them back to back to back, and you were the number 2 ranked team in the country coming into the nation,
and then getting smacked by Purdue
and that's the thing too points. Is it's not just the fact that you lost. It's not the fact you lost. It's how
Purdue
you
was
lost.
a team that was reeling as well.
Yeah,
and that was the 7th place game. It was number 18 Purdue and number 2 Arizona. That was the 7th place game in the.
I can't
battle for Atlantis.
Yeah. So you lose by 6 to North Carolina State, who Northern Iowa beat, by the way. # UNI won Zona. You lose by 6 to SMU. Okay, not terrible losses. I'll take that. You lose by 25 to a Purdue team that I think is capable of making the tournament.
They're struggling right now.
But they're struggling. It'll be just they play Louisville tonight. That'll be an interesting matchup. But that's just not a good loss. And I just haven't bought the Arizona hype. And let's not even forget the fact Arizona right now is not even the best college basketball team in Arizona.
They could be, but they're
not according to the rankings.
That's true.
Have you watched Arizona State? It's kind of weird seeing Arizona State in the rankings.
Have you watched them play?
No, but I will in a few weeks when they come to Allen Fieldhouse.
Have you watched Arizona State play?
Not this year.
They're a fun team to watch.
I watched them a little bit last year, and the style of basketball that team plays it's It's very free flowing, and they just kind of like.
And you look at too. I mean, their coach Bobby Hurley. That's how he played at Duke.
It's just kind of you can when you give your players freedom to take shots. Yeah, you're going to get some ill-advised shots, but you give your players the confidence that if you take this shot, I'm not going to pull you out of the game because it was a bad shot.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with Florida this year.
That's another fun team to watch.
Florida very dangerous, and Arizona State kind of plays the same way, is you just kind of say, okay, watching the Florida Duke game on Sunday in that awesome PK80 tournament, that was a fun game to watch, but Florida took a lot of bad shots.
They did.
But you never saw you never saw Mike White turn to his players and go, okay, get up, go get them, which is what you'll see at a lot of places with some of the shots that Florida was taking. When you play that style of basketball, you're going to get bad shots, but you also give your players confidence to say, I got an open three.
I'm going to take it.
6 seconds into the shot clock, but I'm going to take it. I'm going to hit it.
And you're not going to the situation where you have players passing up good. Because there's times I watch games, and a kid will take some stupid 23-foot shot where he's being double-teamed, and he'll get his butt chewed by the coach. 2 or 3 possessions later, have a wide-open three where if he just catches it and pops it, that's probably going in. But, maybe that thought's in the back of his mind, and he passes it up or whatever, just rushes the shot. That's a fun – Arizona State, like I said, is a fun team to watch. I happen to personally know one of their players a little bit, so I've kind of watched that team closer than I would have any other year. But they're currently ranked in the top 25, and they're 6-0 with wins over Xavier and Kansas State. So, like I said, Arizona, not even the best team in the state right now.
Yeah, I haven't been able to say that for years.
Yeah, you could have probably said the last couple of years, the best basketball team, not even just college, because the Suns have been miserable.
It's true. So, going to the number 1 team, Duke, Trevor, the team that you follow the second closest, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say second closest.
But, looking very close to the real deal after last year, kind of.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, just last year they had a very good freshman class, but, with 2 of them hurting out for a majority of the year, they didn't live up to the hype. They were still a great team, but some other individual kind of stymied their season. Grayson Allen just
he was tripping up.
He was tripping up a lot, not just himself even.
Yeah.
But
other people.
He just
because Elon needs help being tripped.
He just kind of, at least to start this year, has kind of looked closer to what he was his freshman year. And if that happens, then Duke's going to be very good.
My thing with Duke that concerns me, being the Duke fan that I am as well, is they've gotten in some situations this year where they've got down against, they got down against Portland State. I don't remember how many they trailed by at halftime. I watched most of that game. I thought it was somewhere around
39-31 at half.
I thought it was somewhere around the 7 to 10 point range. And they really, Portland State held with them until the final 10 minutes of the game. They trailed, what was the largest lead of the Florida game? 15, 17, something like that.
It was 15 early in the
first
half.
I didn't stay awake for the whole Florida game. I'm bummed. I was really tired.
I made the bad decision to stay up for that game, suffered the next day, but watching that whole game, I'm glad I did.
I meant to.
That was an incredible
When I went to bed, Florida was up 13 with 11 minutes to go. And I happened to roll over and look at the TV, and they were up 8 with 5 minutes to go. And at that point, I was at that point of tiredness where I tried to stay awake, and it lasted about 10 seconds. And I woke up again, and the next thing I knew, they were interviewing Marvin Bagley. So I was like, oh, Duke must have won. But to me, that's what scares me about this Duke team is they've gotten down in situations against teams maybe they shouldn't. Grant Florida's a great team, but you're not going to be able to come back from 17 down against every team all the time.
And you're not going to be able to come down from 15 on a Florida team 2-3 months.
And were they down on Texas too at one point?
Yes.
They were down.
I didn't watch. That was the same time as I would Nebraska football games. So I didn't get a chance to watch that.
I was trying to have you watch the game Sean celebrating. I don't care.
I believe they were down double digits.
I think we were down 13 at one point.
I think it was 70-58 when I chimed in, and then Duke just came back slowly hitting some free throws, and Texas just really couldn't do anything.
I think right now this is the best team in college basketball, but I would be careful with Duke because the way they're playing, and that could change. This is a young team aside from Grayson Allen.
When Grayson Allen fouled out against Texas, they had 5 freshmen on the floor to finish that game. And yes, they got down early, but the fact that 5 freshmen could finish that game, go to overtime, take care of business, and beat Texas, that's impressive. And with Grayson Allen not having to play point guard, that's helped out this team a lot. That now Trent and Duval can kind of take those duties and let Grayson Allen stand at the three-point line and launch threes all game. That's helped him. But Marvin Bagley is one of the best college players I have seen in a long time.
Sean and Ryan Elliott and I were talking the other day. Who would you say he reminds you of in the collegiate games? I'm not going to make these NBA comparisons because who knows. I would say Kevin Durant. Reminds me a lot of maybe an Anthony Davis, maybe, kind of. I don't think he's
like Anthony Davis could literally do everything because he was a point guard for 3 years in high school.
I don't know that he's quite as physical as Anthony Davis is. I'm by no means calling him soft because Marvin Bagley, not only is he one of the best players to watch, to me personally, he is one of the funnest players to watch because he's all over the court. And here's a guy that is, with his size and his athleticism, and he hustles so much. I can't count how many plays I watched him in the first couple games where, maybe he doesn't get the shot he wants. He takes a shot, he misses it, and the defender gets the rebound. He's still trying to go for that steal. He's still immediately trapping him defensively. This is something special that, remember them, if you haven't heard of Marvin Bagley yet, and I hope you have, remember that name because you will be watching him probably for a long, long time.
Yeah, and with Bagley, right now, he's got to be that number one pick in the draft.
I would take him over Michael Porter. I know we haven't seen him from Michael Porter, but I would take him over Michael Porter any day of the week.
Here's Bagley's stat line in the PK80 tournament for all 3 games. 18 and 15 against 18 points, 15 rebounds against Portland State. 34 points, 15 rebounds against Texas. 30 points, 15 rebounds.
He has a thing about getting 15 rebounds.
He's averaging 22 points and 11 rebounds a game.
That's pretty good.
And he's shooting 59%.
Because we've seen a lot of tall players, with his size come into the game, come into college, and they were really big in high school, not quite as big in college. He's taken that size, and I think it was Jay Billis said it about 18 times, and I agree with him. The second jump from Marvin Bagley is unbelievable. As fast as he gets off the ground that second time, he's able to just beat players to the basketball going up for rebounds. He just has that instinct to go get the ball on a rebound when a shot's missed.
Some of the plays he's made, they've just watching this team with Grayson Allen and Marvin Bagley. That's a lot of fun. You throw in a guy like Trevor Duval, who I think is very stellar as well. Gary Trent, Wendell Carter. I'd like to see him stay out of foul trouble. I know he's kind of had some foul trouble here early on in the season. This is a fun team to watch. I think if this team kind of works out these early season kinks, watch out. This might be the best season, I guess. I don't want to say team, but the best season we've seen from a college basketball team since that Kentucky team that beat Kansas in the national title. I could be wrong because it's early. Who knows? But, man.
The one thing that Florida kind of did expose with Duke is a lot taller than they've been in the past. Florida is not tall. They basically everyone on that team.
They have a couple guys with size,
but it's not that real big size. It's
no.
They play smaller. Their starting lineup smaller,
but they're faster.
They're faster. So what it exposed, and Duke was able to find ways around this, but they exposed that if you go a little bit smaller, some of those bigs, Carter, Bolden, struggle to keep up with the smaller players, and it exposed a little bit that when Duke kind of went smaller and they had Bagley and Carter and both Bolden were out with foul trouble, it helped them a little bit. So that's just the one thing that kind of Florida exposed with Duke.
Sean, I know you want to get onto the number 2 ranked team.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good start to the season. Number 2 Kansas played pretty well. They're able to score.
That's
only have seven
it would suck to play basketball and not be able to score.
Virginia and Wisconsin. So Trevor and I have this thing. Trevor enjoys watching good defensive basketball. I'm not opposed to it. What I am opposed to is bad offensive basketball. It's not fun to watch. I don't think it does not have a place.
My thing is, and I didn't watch the game last night. I had other commitments, so I didn't get the chance to watch it. I'm with you, but when I think of those teams, I think of like the Wisconsin teams of a couple years ago. Those Wisconsin teams with Kaminsky and Decker and Gosser and Koenig and Hayes. Those were fun teams to watch because they played sound defensively and they didn't take bad shots. They might not shoot well, but they weren't taking bad shots. They were fun and they were disciplined. The same with the Butler teams and the Brad Stevens year, except for the national title game, they shot atrocious. But those teams were fun. Virginia, and I'd like to see them score more.
Well, I mean, they did last night.
What was that game? 49-37.
46-37, I think, it was 49-37, 86 combined points. I had jokingly told Sean that one of those teams would score 95, and then the two teams combined didn't get to 95. It was 49-37. I saw a high school girls basketball game in Iowa last night that was like 42-35. So they almost outscored Wisconsin and Virginia.
Mm-hmm. But to go back to Kansas, I mean, right now they're only playing with 7 scholarship players, scoring about 100 points a game. Well, minus the Kentucky game. That's a very big outlier. But they won that game, did not shoot well.
Yeah, they shot
at
bad
all
in that game.
It was just like, oh, wow, brick.
Dumb shot.
That Kansas-Kentucky game. Yeah, it was close, but it was not quality basketball. It was
I think
both teams got a lot to work on.
those are two of the best teams in college basketball. Don't get me wrong, they're both top 10 teams. But I agree, like watching that game, because like you got the Duke-Michigan State game, the game before where it was Duke doing their thing up tempo, and then you got Michigan State doing their thing, being Michigan State, keeping that game interesting. And then you watch the Kansas-Kentucky game, and you're like, wow, the shot selection of 18-year-olds is really, really questionable.
Yeah.
And it was a close game. I would say it was a good game, but it was an ugly game.
Yeah, it's true. And now one of the only big story, well, there's two big-ish storylines for Kansas. One is, will Billy Preston play? Kind of the big story. Because I don't know where it's going to go. I think Bill Self gave an update yesterday. We don't have any other answers. You don't really have a big game for a while, so it's okay for him to be out. But, I mean, having him back will be a good thing. And another big story is a 2018 Kansas commit, Silvio D'Souza. He could start in January just because he graduated high school. He's on there, but it kind of comes down to the NCAA. And I think even if let's say he can't play with the team, he still could practice with the team.
The thing and Sean, I'm sure you can attest to this more because you watch Kansas a lot closer than I do, and I don't know, maybe Jacob does, maybe Jacob doesn't. Kansas to me doesn't look very big.
They're not.
Am I wrong? Other than Udoka Azubuike, and
you have Mitch Lightfoot who's
coming
playing
off
better.
the bench. And he played well in the Kentucky game I saw, but he's what 6'8", 6'9". I know Azubuike is 6'11",
6'10", but he's very big. He's
a big boy. Mm-hmm. Other than that, they don't have a lot of size.
No, so they have to be careful about foul trouble.
Which, I mean, you think back to some of the other Kansas teams of the last couple years. Is that really that surprising that they only have one real big guy?
For the way that Kansas played when I was a child and until about 2015.
Yeah.
Yes, this style of playing is not what I've grown up with. But now,
let's go last year. I mean, Azubuike was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what'd they have for big guys?
Didn't really have anybody.
Exactly. 2 years ago, they had Perry Ellis. And the previous 12 years before that, they had Perry Ellis, which it's a time we elect a new Perry Ellis of college basketball that
Javon Carter from West Virginia.
That's exact. That guy looks old. I watched some West Virginia Mizzou game, and that guy looks like he's 30 years old. I think I've seen that guy at the YMCA 10 minutes from my hometown before playing basketball. I thought it was that is how Javon Carter looks. I swore that guy graduated a couple years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, for Kansas, they haven't played small ball, which is what they do now, and they're scoring a lot of points. I mean, even the past two games they scored 114 and 102 points. In the game they scored 114, they made a lot of threes. In this last game, they didn't make a lot of threes, and they're still scoring more than 100, which you don't generally do. They were feeding it down in the post, and I mean, playing against a team that really doesn't have a chance to stop you in the post. But one thing that they had to do going from the Kentucky game was feed the post because they were not making outside shots. And it's a bit easier to make a shot from 3 feet than it is from 20.
Not if you're me.
But they just kind of got it in the post, and they're kind of finding a way to shape this team because right now it doesn't hurt them that they only have 7 scholarship players. But I think it will come Big 12 play, if not towards March.
Yeah, this team, from what I saw, I think this team's got the capability of being the best team in the nation. I don't doubt that. But there are some things they got to clean up. I don't think, and this is maybe just me being this old, I love fundamental basketball and Trevor likes Wisconsin and Virginia and Butler, so he must hate good offense. The problem with the way Kansas plays is, like you talked about, they shoot the three ball really, really good. Sometimes that three-pointer will not fall. And then what do you got? They're not real big, so it's not like they can attack the post. Then you're relying on Graham to create separation and get those tough jumpers.
See, that's where you exit the tournament in March early, is if you get one of those games in the tournament. You're a team that can make it to the Final Four, but your three ball is failing you in that round of 32, or you end up against a Virginia basketball team where they just completely shut you down and then you're in trouble.
Well, you think back to the team that beat Kansas last year in the tournament, Oregon. They had a couple bigs. Chris Boucher gets hurt in the Pac-12 title game, and maybe it was in the tournament. I think it was a title game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
because they would have been a 2 seed had he not got hurt, most likely.
I picked Providence to beat them because they actually had bigs and they actually were able to
picked Rhode Island.
come back. Or one of the
But anyway, so you get Chris Boucher who's injured, and everyone's going, okay, well, Oregon doesn't really have that dominating force. They shoot the three ball really well. But what if they go cold? What are they going to go to in the paint? Well, luckily, the kid's name's escaping me.
Jordan Bell.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. I figured you would remember because...
Well, no, I do one because of that and because he's playing in the NBA. There's some stories about him. He was on the Bulls. Now he's on the Warriors, so good.
He caused you a lot of pain as well.
Oh, yeah.
But he was able to be that force down low, and it gave him that element of the game. Last year, like I said, that was exposed when Azubuike was hurt for Kansas. So
yeah, they didn't have a dominant post player, so it was really like, well, we can play 4 guys and hope for the best. Like that's
we can be
that's
Alabama
what it
and play 3 guys.
It's true.
So
yeah, Jacob, do you have anything else for the college basketball season? I have a lot of things on my mind right now.
There's probably a lot more We could probably do a whole nother hour.
Stop it, Trevor. I'm too hungry.
Real quick, 2 things. A couple weeks ago, I made a bold prediction about Wichita State and Cincinnati. That prediction lasted about 2 whole weeks because Wichita State
it was like a week.
Yeah, that.
Actually, I think it was exactly a week.
Well,
I remember I thought of you.
Yes.
I was listening. So I was on my way home from Omaha, and I was listening to the Wichita State Notre Dame game, and there may or may not have been an idiot in this room last year picked Notre Dame to make the Final Four, and that was me. And I like watching Notre Dame play. I like Mike Brett. And I was thinking of you when I watched that game or listened to that game because I was like, Jacob's wrong.
Well, see, Wichita State did about the most un-Wichita State thing they could have ever. They forgot how to play 4th grade basketball in the last 5 minutes of that game.
Well, what was their lead at one point? Didn't they have
they were up 18, I believe.
I thought it was. I knew it was double digits.
At the end of the game, one of the big plays was, 4th grade basketball. You're taught when the pass is thrown to you, you go to the basketball.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
that's why I never played.
And Austin Reeves, on a Notre Dame press, just kind of stopped when the pass was thrown to him and the pass was picked off, and just stuff like that at the end of the game cost Wichita State that game. They'll get that fixed. I think they're missing Marcus McDuffie right now, so
yeah,
obviously that bold prediction from a couple weeks ago will not happen.
I don't think they'll be undefeated. Wichita State obviously won't. I don't know about Cincinnati. I think they could both be top 5, top 10 teams. I wouldn't surprise me. That's still a long ways away. I believe their first matchup's like in February, like February 18th or something like that. So that wouldn't surprise me too much if they're top 5 or top 10. But yeah, that prediction obviously is not going to be completely accurate, but I like what I've seen from Notre Dame so far, guys. The way they were able to fight back against Wichita State and get that win. I keep waiting for Notre Dame to make the Final Four, just because, like I said, I really like Mike Brett. I feel like he's done things the right way at Notre Dame, and it's still really early, but you got to be confident with that win if you're Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. And Wichita State's still a good basketball team. And the other thing I wanted to just touch on real quick was the Alabama-Minnesota.
That game was wild.
Kerfuffle.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
There's the scuffle, and the entire Alabama team leaves the bench, so they're left with 5 guys. And a guy fouls out, so they're down to 4. Then a guy gets hurt, so they're down to 3. And then with 3 players on the court, they outscored Minnesota. And Minnesota won the game, but that was really one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
And you know what's sad is most people in Alabama probably didn't even see it because it literally was going on minutes after the Iron Bowl. So the level of tolerance for Alabama fans at that point was probably not very high, considering they just got spanked by Auburn. And I was scrolling Twitter as I do I watch a ton of college sports, but not gonna lie, like when I'm watching, I'm scrolling social media too, and I tweet what's on my mind. As to Sean, I don't know if Jacob does or not, but And I was scrolling through Twitter, and it happened to come across my Twitter feed that Alabama was playing with 3 players. So I was like, oh, I got to see this. Well, it just so happens it was some broadcast that was on Facebook Live, which was awesome. And I watched the last probably 4 or 5 minutes of that game 3-on-5, and that was really neat. It's something that doesn't happen that often.
And Alabama's actually going to probably make the tournament this year. They have a guard in Colin Sexton that is probably going to end up being a lottery pick.
Mm-hmm. Avery Johnson's a good coach, too.
Mm-hmm. He used to coach the Nets, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mavericks, too.
Yeah.
He was the coach of the Mavericks the first time they made the finals, if I'm correct.
Was that like 2006 or something?
Yeah.
Might have been a little bit later than that.
Wasn't he No, because they lost to the Heat in 06. I'm pretty sure he was their coach at that time. Maybe I'm wrong. Nope, he was their head coach. And then he got fired, went to the Nets. They were a mess because they're the Nets.
Yeah.
He took a couple years off. It was at ESPN.
Yeah, it was.
And one of the best quotes, I was listening to Golick and Wingo yesterday, which is worth a listen. And they had him on. And they were talking about, how do you draw up a play for 3-on-5? And he said, well, when you're working at ESPN and you're an unemployed coach and you want to get back into coaching, you have a lot of free time, so you just start doodling. Like, that was, like, I don't know if that actually was true, but that had to, like, props to them. Like, to play the way they played with 3 players.
Well, in practice, you'll actually run 3-on-5 drills, and this is what
that's what he said.
Pitino from Minnesota said, is you practice 3-on-5 from the defensive side. You don't really practice 5-on-3
from the offensive,
which is just weird because you end up, you're playing a college basketball game. You expect every single shot to be contested and to get open shot after open shot after open shot. It can mess with your head.
My thing is, though, with Minnesota is, let's go to the flip side of it, is, and I'm not going to badmouth Minnesota or anything because this Alabama team's a good team. And like Richard Pitino said, Colin Sexton could probably beat anybody 1-on-5 or give him a run for their money. But what point would you say, let's just go to a man defense and double team Sexton, and then you could do a 4-man defense essentially, or you could double team Sexton, go man on man there one, and kind of have a guy playing kind of a floater. I don't know. I that kind of baffled me a little bit.
Yeah, there's some stuff you can do like that. Run a kind of like a triangle and 2. There's only 3 guys you have to defend. Take away the one guy that can score. But the way Alabama was able to kind of stop Minnesota is they just packed the lane and said, okay, go shoot long 2s, and that's what Minnesota did. And even if you're open, long 2s are hard to make. And
Minnesota's not a great deep shooting team because they play in the Big Ten, and there isn't a good deep shooting team. Like let's be real. Like, how many good deep shooting teams have been in the Big Ten in the last couple?
Wisconsin,
Michigan at times. That's it. That's
Michigan State maybe.
And Maryland for a while had some players that could do it, but not now. But like now, no, there's some good players that can do it. Wisconsin
but
had Decker. But as a whole team, I don't even that Wisconsin team. There were some times where they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from beyond 18 feet. So
that's true.
Yeah. So yeah, I understood that and thought that was a good move on Avery Johnson's part.
It's true. Well, this is going to wrap up our week whatever edition of the sports podcast. Doesn't have a name, doesn't need it, but I'm here with Jacob Blair, Trevor Mater, Sean Nino. This week we went over extensively college football, what's going to happen this next weekend with the conference championships, and kind of what's going on in the coaching world. And we went over some college basketball, just kind of talked about, some teams that we enjoy, that type of stuff. But thank you for tuning in.